How's it going, everyone? Adam here with Bishop Sheen Rosaries. Thank you so much for tuning in to another video. Sorry about the studio, kind of in the middle of grad school, and this has been relegated to studio and study office, and it's just there's a lot going on in the camp house right now. But I want to thank you for checking out this video. This is going to be a pertinent topic, especially it's been over the past few years and will continue to be in the future. Where are the young people going? How can we attract more, especially young people, to our churches? Parishioner numbers have been declining across the board in a lot of different regions of the world, and one small case study would be St. Louis, here where my home archdiocese is, just released this report of where the young people want to go. It's essentially a poll of where the young people are attending Mass. So what I did was I compiled data on all of the top destinations, and I'm just doing an objective look at what these churches have in common. I'm not trying to draw too many conclusions or tell one person that one thing is better than another, but I think this is an important topic, and I think that we can glean some insight onto what are the young people actually attracted to, especially, like I said, this is just a case study in St. Louis, but perhaps it could be extrapolated and taken to other parts of our world and our larger Catholic Church. But without further ado, let's head over to the computer and take a look at the data for ourselves. So this is kind of the spreadsheet that I compiled some data from the Archdiocese poll of the top 10 destinations. I just picked out the top 5. And so yeah, I started with physical criteria, something physical about the church. And one of these criteria is that there is an altar rail separating the sanctuary from the congregation. And at the oratory of Saints Greg and Gus, or Gregory and Augustine, the oratory of Francis de Sales, and the Cathedral Basilica, that's 3 of the top choices for young adults. They all said yes, they do have an altar rail that separates the sanctuary and the congregation. St. Mary Magdalene does as well. Epiphany of Our Lord did not have altar rail, but I do know from going to Mass there that at certain Masses they do bring out a kneeler so that if somebody does desire to receive on the tongue and at a railing, the priest can offer that option as well. The next criteria was that it was built in a traditional or a Gothic architecture. It's not one of those modern style churches or one that's in the round. All 5 of these churches, that's true. None of these churches are built in the round or without that traditional straight architecture of all pews facing the sanctuary and then the sanctuary behind it. The next criteria about the physical building is that it has a Catholic grade school. And actually, I found this very interesting. None of these churches except St. Mary Magdalene have a Catholic grade school. Actually, the school at Epiphany of Our Lord closed down, and they sold it to another school, another private school to operate. And actually there was a high school at the Francis de Sales Oratory, but that's been closed for many years. But there are notably some homeschool co-ops out of both oratories of Greg and Gus and St. Francis de Sales Oratory. The next set of criteria were sacraments, and this is very important to pretty much every young Catholic I talk to, that there are multiple confession times per week and that they at least offer daily Mass. All 5 of these churches meet that criteria, and actually St. Mary Magdalene, they have 3 daily Masses, and this is one of the reasons I think a lot of people are attracted to going to this Mass, especially later in the evening Masses. Like for people who work all day, and especially young adults that work busy 9 to 5, they have a 5:30 p.m. Mass, and I think that's really huge. The next criteria, that communion on the tongue or kneeling to receive communion is encouraged. That kind of goes along with the altar rail, but yes, all 5 of these churches do offer communion on the tongue, or they encourage it, or they have an announcement that you can. And I just said most don't at the Cathedral Basilica because it is very transient. There's a lot of travelers that come to that church. Sacramental criteria, that they offer the Latin and Tridentine Mass
the priest can be ad orientem, or there's a different rite than the Novus Ordo. Two of these, the oratories, this is the only way they do Mass, is that they offer that Latin Tridentine Mass rather than the Novus Ordo. Cathedral Basilica does not, neither does Mary Magdalene, but Epiphany of Our Lord has started offering one Latin Mass every 2 weeks, actually, and then the opposite week is still a very solemn Novus Ordo Mass. Regular use of incense, and this is true at all 4 of the first sets of churches. It's not really true at St. Mary Magdalene. I haven't seen regular use of incense or really any use of incense, but that's true at the other 4 you see listed. Another criteria is that the priest wears a fiddleback and or a biretta. This is kind of the more traditional garb for the priest, and this is true at the Oratory of Greg and Gus, St. Francis de Sales, and Epiphany of Our Lord. This is not necessarily true at the Cathedral Basilica or St. Mary Magdalene. Now moving on to sacred music. So this is something also very important to a lot of young adults. There are no masses with contemporary instruments such as the guitar or the drums. And this is true at all 4 of the first churches you see there, without being true necessarily at St. Mary Magdalene. I believe there's one more contemporary mass, but still all of these services are very reverent. And I've been to Mass at almost all of these, and yes, they offer very solemn masses, which also with antiphonal style of chant at least one Mass for pretty much, again, all of these churches except St. Mary Magdalene. I have not seen that there. So moving on to parishioner criteria, I have maybe the least knowledge of this one specifically, that Mass attendance numbers are increasing. I know at the oratories this is true. This is somewhat true at the Cathedral Basilica, but it's really hard to judge because it's such a transient crowd. There's a lot of travelers, like I said. It's a world famous church and there's constantly people in and out. And the Mass attendance numbers at Epiphany of Our Lord, I know for a fact because I heard the pastor give a homily that the numbers are increasing at the 6:30 Mass, which is that Latin Mass or that more solemn Mass. But the numbers aren't necessarily increasing at the other Masses. So that's something very interesting. And I know from experience, I'm seeing a lot of young people and a lot of families, young infants and babies at that Mass particularly. And I know at St. Mary Magdalene, the numbers are somewhat increasing as well. It really depends on the time frame you look at. Women wearing veils is common. Now, this is one that I know for a fact at the oratories and at Epiphany of Our Lord from experience that this is true. However, at the Cathedral Basilica and St. Mary Magdalene, it's not really as common, but you will see it from time to time. And finally, that many Mass goers take reverent time for prayer before and after Mass. I really think that this is important, and this is something that I look for in a church. This is true at both the oratories. This is pretty true at Epiphany of Our Lord, particularly at 6:30 Mass. Again, I wouldn't say it's as true at the Cathedral Basilica just because of all the tourists, and there's constantly people coming in to take pictures and walk around, and there's sometimes just a lot of noise. And there's also true, can be true at St. Mary Magdalene, that not on weekends, but at weekday Masses, there is a lot of people praying before and after Mass. And this is one reason I particularly like to go there for certain daily Masses. So I want to thank my friends Kellen and Lucas for helping me gather some of this data. I know Incarnate Word was in the top few choices of churches in St. Louis as well. I'd love to hear in the comments if there's certain things about your parish or other parishes that maybe I missed. I know youth groups are really big, but maybe not necessarily for young adults as much as more like teens. But like having young adult events are really key. And I know a lot of these churches are having them as well. So please let me know in the comments below, why do you go to the church that you go to? I would love to keep this research going and keep the conversation going.
You rock. You made it to the end of that video. I hope you learned something new. I hope there's something that you could relate to in this video. And just let you know, there is an Advent sale going on right now at sheenrosaries.com. Make sure to check out the Carpenter Rosary before it's gone for good, if you need that last minute Christmas gift. From us to you, through Mary.